News reports from around the world are covering a major global crisis. World leaders gather for an emergency meeting in Athens to discuss the problem. Earth is running out of food, water, and other essential resources. As a result, all international borders are closed, and countries are told to reduce their population. Meanwhile, people are waiting in long lines to collect water. They carry plastic bottles and use umbrellas to shield themselves from the harsh sunlight and UV rays. Nearby, a truck from the Department of Citizen Strategy arrives at a house. Workers remove a dead body, and their leader, Bob, hands a file to a girl inside before the team leaves. Malik and Youssef watch the scene from their car, feeling helpless. They continue their journey to deliver a piano to a customer. On the way, they see a billboard showing a family that joined the enlistment program. Frustrated, Malik throws his coffee at the sign. When they reach the customer's house, they carry the piano inside. On the TV, Professor Jared is being interviewed about the global crisis. He supports the government and says humanity is in a fight for survival, but the female journalist challenges his views. Malik says he hates Jared for his beliefs. Surprisingly, the homeowner, Charles York, Jared's father, agrees with Malik, which makes him feel more at ease. Later, Charles begins cleaning the floor. In the kitchen, Dawn Kim is busy preparing a seafood meal for her family. Charles walks in, compliments her cooking, pours himself a glass of whiskey, and mentions that marrying her was the biggest mistake of his life, though it seems he says it with regret rather than anger. Charles tells Dawn there's still time to finish the meal for the kids, but he notices something is wrong. Dawn stays quiet and keeps working, not responding to him. As he turns to leave, she suddenly hugs him and starts crying. It's clear she wants to say something but is overwhelmed with emotion. Meanwhile, Jared arrives at his family's home in a luxury car. His wife, Beth, yells at him about the interview he gave, where he said he would hand over their son, Lucas, to the Department of Citizen Strategy if it became mandatory. Jared asks to speak to Lucas, but Beth refuses and says she'll never let him talk to their son. Then she hangs up. Jared is surprised to see the seafood dish Dawn prepared and is about to taste it when she stops him. He then tries to pour a drink, but the whiskey cupboard is empty. He asks if his brother Noah will be coming, and Dawn confirms he will, also reminding Jared that Noah is his brother. Jared responds coldly, pointing out that Noah is adopted. Frustrated, Dawn tells him to relax in the living room and mentions that Charles is also at the house. Later, Rachel arrives with her daughter, Mia. Mia is curious about the car outside and assumes it belongs to her grandfather, but Rachel tells her it's actually Jared's. While they're talking, Charles comes downstairs. Mia tells him that Rachel forced her to come, but Charles warmly reassures her that he's happy to see her. Rachel encourages Mia to go speak with Jared, and Mia quickly runs off. Then, Charles tells Rachel that the government program is only for adults and questions why she brought Mia. Rachel explains that she couldn't leave her daughter alone. As she turns to leave, she reminds Charles that if he doesn't want them there, they can go. Charles stops her and says it's okay for them to stay. Rachel agrees to stay. Noah feels confused and calls his girlfriend, Grace. He tells her he's thinking about reconnecting with his family because of a mistake he made in the past. Grace encourages him to visit them and helps calm him down when he starts to panic. She reminds him of the future they want to build together. Still feeling uneasy, Noah agrees to meet her later at their apartment, and they end the call. As Noah heads back, his sister Ashley stops him and he gets into her car. They have a friendly conversation. Noah asks why their father invited everyone to the house. Ashley says she doesn't know, but guesses he might be planning to return to work. Then she steps out of the car and wraps herself in a towel. When she sees Noah using his phone, she realizes he's messaging Grace. Curious, she asks who Grace is and gets back into the car to talk more. Noah says he met Grace during a meeting but doesn't share many details. He asks Ashley to keep it a secret, and she promises not to tell anyone. Charles is surprised and happy to see Noah, and he hugs him. Later, the whole family gathers around the dinner table, which is full of different dishes. Dawn introduces the meal and proudly mentions that this was the first dish she ever learned to cook. During dinner, Charles apologizes to his family for his past mistakes. After the meal, Noah tries to talk about his own situation, but Rachel interrupts, saying they are more interested in hearing why their father invited them. Then, to everyone's surprise, Charles tells his children that he and Dawn have decided to enlist in the Department of Citizen Strategy. Shocked, Rachel tells Mia to go watch TV. Mia hesitates but eventually leaves the table. Charles becomes angry with Rachel for using harsh language. Jared then asks Charles why he and Dawn would make such a decision. Charles explains that, based on his past experiences, He believes the only way he can ensure his children's safety is by volunteering himself. Jared responds by saying the government probably won't even select them, and even if they do, they'll only choose one person per family. He reminds them that the law protects the rest of the family if one person is selected and that, in reality, families like theirs are unlikely to be chosen. He suggests they shouldn't worry too much about it. Charles admits that his first marriage with Dawn ended badly, but he believes that meeting her again was a blessing, and he's sure they're doing the right thing now. Rachel says she doesn't want to interfere with Charles's decision, but she questions Dawn about the choice they made together. Dawn responds by saying that both she and Charles are public figures, and by enlisting, they can set a good example while protecting their children. Ashley disagrees and tells Dawn that the decision isn't really hers. Dawn firmly replies that it was a joint decision, not just Charles's alone. Frustrated, Noah stands up and reminds Charles that he had promised to spend more time with them. Angry, Noah hits the table with the stick he uses for his injured leg. Dawn tells him to stop and says they can continue the conversation after dessert. At that moment, a news report announces that citizens are protesting against the Department of Citizen Strategy and that the department's building is now on fire. Later, Noah tells Charles that the government is lying to its citizens and that the whole enlistment program is a scam. He mentions that a friend of his knows the truth. Jared interrupts, accusing Noah's friend of being a liar, and demands to know his name. At first, Noah hesitates but eventually says the friend is someone just like him. Jared stands firm and tries to discredit Noah, but Charles steps in and defends his son. He reminds Jared that he's always on TV supporting the government, no matter what. Charles questions whether Jared can really be trusted. This sparks a heated argument between Charles and Jared. Things get worse when Jared blames the situation on Asians. Furious, Charles brings up the fact that Dawn's restaurant was burned down because of that kind of hateful thinking, and he directly blames Jared's mindset for it. Ashley suddenly brings up Noah's girlfriend. Charles asks Noah if he's dating another addict. Although Noah doesn't really want to talk about it, he explains that his new girlfriend, Grace, is a good person. Charles immediately asks to see a picture of her. Noah shows him a photo of Grace and tells him she's a manager at Sports World in Oakwood Mall, and that he also works there as a piano player in the food court. Charles is impressed and tells Noah he's proud of him, then goes to help Dawn. Mia is scrolling through social media when she receives a message labeling a woman as evil. Suddenly, Charles enters the room and tells his children that Dawn is gone. He shows them a note she left behind. Rachel reads the note and immediately asks Charles if he had signed up for enlistment. Just then, there's a knock at the door. Mia opens it and sees Bob, the manager from the Department of Citizen Strategy. Recognizing him, she silently shuts the door without saying a word. Rachel then asks Charles if the enlistment appointment is scheduled for that day. Charles confirms it is. He wanted to say goodbye while the whole family was present. He then opens the door and invites Bob in. Bob starts by complimenting Charles, noting his reputation as a respected journalist, and politely asks if he can come inside. While the rest of the family feels uncomfortable, Charles agrees to let him in. Inside, Bob admires the house. Jared tries to speak, but Bob cuts him off, saying he already knows who he is, someone who sides with the government. Jared responds, saying he isn't a government official but an anthropologist who works alongside them. Bob dismisses his response and quickly shifts the conversation, asking where Dawn is. Ashley tells Bob that Dawn isn't there, confirming that she has already left. Charles explains that he and Dawn had agreed to enlist, but he had asked Bob to come on a different day. Sensing something is off, Bob asks to speak to Charles in private and says he needs him to sign a confidential form to cancel the procedure. Charles agrees and takes him to his office. Bob hands him the paperwork to sign, but before signing, Charles says he wants to read the entire agreement. While Charles reads, Bob starts commenting on the office, looking around and talking about the tools and the setup. As Charles continues reading, he becomes upset and asks Bob if he knows who he really is. Bob calmly replies that it doesn't matter, there's no other option. Meanwhile, Noah plays the piano in the background. The rest of the children gather around Charles, who has now accepted the enlistment. Ashley questions him, reminding him that he had promised to enlist together with Dawn. Charles admits she's right, but changes the subject. He apologizes to them for his past actions and urges them to support each other and stay united. Overwhelmed, Mia starts crying. Without emotion, Bob tells Charles that the injection will make him fall asleep peacefully, meaning he will die without pain. Then, he gives Charles the injection. Charles dies quietly. Bob's team then comes in and takes away his body. Bob thanks the family for allowing their father to go through with the enlistment. Ashley coldly tells him to leave. Just before walking out, Bob drops a bombshell. He needs a second cadaver. The whole family is shocked. Noah angrily tells him to get out, and Bob quietly leaves. Shortly after, Bob returns, with an armed guard. He announces that they have 3 hours until the next scheduled enlistment. After checking the time, he says they now have only 2 hours left to decide who will replace Dawn. Jared says he will contact friends in government who can stop this. But Bob calmly shuts him down, saying the house has already been scrambled and no help is coming. He tells them to focus on the task. There's no way out. Bob adds that since Mia is underage, he won't get paid if she's taken. Still, he suggests taking her, which causes a heated argument. Bob tries to reassure Rachel that Mia will be safe. Reluctantly, Rachel calms Mia down and hands her over to Bob. Ashley argues that the family shouldn't be responsible for finding a replacement since Dawn was the one who left. Bob agrees they are still searching for Dawn, but says they can't let her disappearance drop them below their quota. Noah then asks about their father. Bob confirms that Charles willingly signed the enlistment form. He also warns that if Charles hadn't signed, the family could have faced serious consequences, like frozen bank accounts or even prison time. Jared stands up and tells Bob that he has no right to do what he's doing. He tries to take charge of the family and argues that Bob is making a terrible mistake. Bob listens but refuses to accept Jared's authority. He reminds him that the rules are the same for everyone. Bob tells the family to go to their separate rooms and reflect on their lives. He adds that once they do, they might realize their lives aren't as valuable as they think. Then, Bob pulls out a file and begins reading details about Jared's wife and son. He then moves on to Rachel's file. But before he can read it, Rachel cuts him off. She admits she already knows what's in it, that her daughter is being bullied because of her. Bob nods and confirms that she's right. Rachel goes on, saying she's about to lose her job and is wanted for a series of bank robberies. Suddenly, she kicks Bob in the face. Bob sets the file down on a shelf and begins to leave the house. Jared asks him what will happen if the family doesn't choose someone for enlistment. Bob calmly replies that if they don't decide, he will choose for them. Then he leaves. Armed guards remain outside, securing the house. Ashley tries to check the internet but finds there's no connection. While going through Charles's email, she discovers that he made a wire transfer of $3 million. Meanwhile, in another room, Bob asks Mia to play cards with him. During the game, he says he doesn't think highly of her mother. But Mia confidently responds that she always appreciates her mom. Later, everyone is confused and unsure of what to do. Ashley breaks down and screams, unable to control her emotions. Rachel, however, stays calm and doesn't react, even as Ashley cries out. Jared starts slapping himself and talking to himself, overwhelmed by the situation. Eventually, they all sit together to talk. Jared suggests that Noah should sacrifice himself for the family. Ashley immediately rejects the idea. Jared then begins criticizing Noah, pointing out that even though he's adopted, he still received everything: education at the best schools, private piano lessons, and more. He also brings up Noah's past mistake, being responsible for a woman's death in a car accident. Noah stays silent. Ashley gets up and says Jared should be the one to enlist instead. The argument escalates, and they start pushing each other, getting into a physical fight. Noah yells for them to stop. He explains that the reason he came was to apologize and to make peace. He reminds them that their father told them to stay united and support each other through hard times. Rachel then blames Charles for everything, saying he's the one who signed the paper that would lead to their deaths. Noah responds that Charles wouldn't have done it if he knew the full truth. But Rachel doesn't believe that. She's convinced Charles signed the form intentionally. Mia is still with Bob, who continues amusing himself by playing cards. Mia criticizes his character, calling him out for who he really is. Bob tells her she's acting just like her mother. Suddenly, a security guard arrives and tells Bob that a warning light is flashing in the house. Bob immediately heads back to investigate. Inside, Ashley asks Bob what method he will use if no one volunteers for enlistment. Bob shows them a stick he plans to use to randomly choose someone. Rachel then asks what would happen if they gave him a dead body instead. Bob says they'd still have to follow the official sign-up procedure, but assures her he would find a way around it if needed. When Bob returns to his truck, he finds the deck of cards torn up by Mia. Back inside the house, Rachel refuses to explain why she asked Bob such a disturbing question. Ashley asks her what her solution is, but Rachel admits she doesn't really have one. She points out that they don't act like a real family, they only see each other 3 or 4 times a year. When Noah asks what her point is, Rachel suddenly pulls out a knife and tries to stab him. She only injures him slightly before he kicks her away, and Ashley steps in to break it up. Rachel then warns Ashley not to get involved, accusing her of only wanting to leave and chase her dream of being a famous actress. Rachel's words cause Ashley to waver, and she throws the knife to her. Then Rachel reveals that Noah received a secret inheritance from Charles, which she claims she saw in his email. Enraged, all three, Rachel, Ashley, and Jared, turn against Noah. They surround him, preparing to attack. Noah pleads with the others, telling them they're family and should not be fighting. But they don't back down. One by one, Noah kicks each of them to defend himself. Ashley then sprays something into his eyes, temporarily blinding him, but he still manages to kick her away and escape into another room. Meanwhile, Mia tells Bob she needs to use the bathroom. Before letting her in, Bob pulls out his toothbrush, suspecting she might try to pee on it as a prank. Just then, Bob gets a call from the guards, who inform him that Dawn has been found. They say he can now release Charles's family, but Bob refuses. Instead, he tells them to take Dawn to headquarters. In the other room, Noah pulls a knife from his back and removes a damaged tooth. He's visibly shaken. His whole family has turned against him. Trying to stay calm, he attempts to call Grace, but the network is down. Frustrated, he throws his phone out the window. Ironically, right after that, the signal returns and the message is sent. Back in the truck, Mia grows tired of Bob's dull conversation. She tries to leave, but Bob stops her. She asks what's taking her family so long inside the house. Bob casually suggests they might be killing each other. When Mia questions him in disbelief, Bob coldly says it was her mother's idea. Furious, Mia kicks over the bowl of popcorn and tries to open the truck door, but it's locked. Noah quietly leaves the room and heads downstairs. He takes a fork and slips it into his pocket. Hearing a noise coming from the closet, he opens it and finds Ashley hiding inside. She pleads with him not to hurt her and apologizes for what she did. Noah calmly asks where Jared and Rachel are. Ashley tells him they're in the living room and warns him that they're holding Dawn's knife. Noah says he's going to talk to them and try to end the conflict. Ashley offers to go with him, but he tells her to stay behind him in case they try to attack. As they walk, Ashley shows him an old photo from their childhood. For a moment, Noah is lost in the memory of how close they once were. Suddenly, Rachel appears and stabs Noah in the finger. Reacting quickly, Noah kicks both Rachel and Jared. He calls out to Ashley for help, but instead of helping, she runs away. Despite the pain, Noah manages to move to another room. When Jared opens the door, Noah strikes him with a wooden object and stabs Rachel with a fork. Jared hesitates to fight back, and Noah knocks him to the ground with a powerful kick. As Noah pushes forward, Ashley unexpectedly kicks him from behind, knocking him unconscious. Bob grows frustrated with Mia's harsh words. He tries to explain that once the Department of Citizen Strategy meets its enlistment quota, the right people will get to live good lives. But Mia mocks his reasoning. Angered, Bob loses his temper and yells at her. A guard checks in from outside, but Bob quickly assures him everything is fine. He then apologizes to Mia and says that dying peacefully for your family is the most beautiful part of the process. Feeling disturbed, Mia tells him he just enjoys watching people die. Meanwhile, Noah is tied up. Rachel insists they need to kill him quickly, but Ashley hesitates. The three of them prepare to stab him with a knife, until they're interrupted by a noise outside. When they check, it's Grace. She demands to know where Noah is. Bob orders her to leave, but Grace stands her ground and tells him she's not talking to him. Taking advantage of the distraction, Mia starts the truck's engine. When the guard steps in front of the door, Mia tries to escape but is stopped by Bob. Grace runs off to get help, but without hesitation, the security guard shoots and kills her. Rachel coldly tells Bob that now he has his second body. Bob responds that he was actually planning to use both of Charles's bodies. When they return to the house, they discover Noah is no longer tied up, he's escaped. Panic sets in as they start searching for him. The house has gone completely dark, and they quickly arm themselves with kitchen utensils, preparing for what might come next. Using the darkness to his advantage, Noah sneaks up and stabs Ashley. He then swiftly kicks both Jared and Rachel, one after the other. Without hesitation, he stabs Rachel in the face with a fork. Afterward, he returns to Ashley and begins to suffocate her. Rachel, still nearby, begs him to stop and reminds him of their father's words. Noah hesitates, then moves back to Rachel and grabs her face tightly. At that moment, Rachel breaks down and tells him she will volunteer for the procedure, blaming herself for being selfish and cruel. Before anything is decided, Jared interrupts and insists that he should be the one to volunteer, calling himself a terrible husband. Ashley responds that he's already done enough damage. Tired of all the guilt and arguing, Noah firmly declares that no one should volunteer, they should fight back and take Bob down. Meanwhile, Mia pleads with Bob to stop, but he only laughs at her coldly. Ashley is badly wounded. Noah apologizes, but she tells him it's not his fault. As she continues to bleed heavily, they press a heated spoon against her wound to stop the bleeding. The pain is too much. Ashley loses consciousness. When the countdown ends, Bob enters the house. He sees Ashley collapsed on the floor. Jared, Rachel, and Noah come out slowly. The security guard raises his weapon and orders them to turn around to prove they're unarmed. Bob thanks them for complying. Suddenly, Ashley regains enough strength to stab the guard in the leg. The group quickly overpowers and restrains both Bob and the wounded guard. Just then, more guards rush into the house. Noah grabs Bob and warns him not to make a move. Bob gives the order, and the guards drop their weapons. Jared picks one up. As the tension settles, Ashley faints again, and in the chaos, Bob headbutts Noah. Without hesitation, Jared strikes Bob hard, knocking him to the ground. Bob regains consciousness but finds himself tied to a chair. One of the guards tells him that they are forcing him to reveal the full enlistment procedure. Bob realizes what's happening, but he still insists on warning Charles's family. He tells Jared that the government will arrest them, and that Lucas and Mia will also be taken into custody. Noah tells Mia to leave the room. Before she goes, Mia apologizes to Bob about his wife and warns him that he will suffer the same fate. Bob tries to make a deal. He asks them to untie him and the guards so they can take Ashley and leave. Rachel interrupts and tells Bob that it wasn't their sister who died, but rather Bob's female security guard, who was killed by mistake during the procedure caused by Bob's own guard. Noah blames Bob for his girlfriend's death and for the current situation. As Noah prepares an injection, Bob begs him to stop. Bob then reveals that Dawn is being held at the headquarters. Furious, Noah suffocates him and proceeds with the procedure. Noah is seen playing the piano at an event attended by his entire family, including Lucas and Dawn. Meanwhile, the news announces Grace and Ashley as the enlisters of the week, describing them as best friends. Bob is shown giving a testimony about them.